Welcome to another episode on the Growth Leadership Cafe. My name is Adesua, and if this is your first time coming across my YouTube channel, you're very welcome. You're in the right spot. It means that you're in search of tips, tricks on how to build your capacity as a leader. And so for my folks, my subscribers who've been with me for a while now, thank you for joining me on another episode. On this channel, I talk about all things personal and organizational leadership. So whether for folks who are in paid employment in managerial positions or as an entrepreneur and you're developing your team. So welcome. Today, I'm talking about something that is crucial in any business environment, and that is how to build trust. And in helping me speak about this is Stephane Bassomo, who is a seasoned projects consultant, and he's worked with so many teams, and so he will be giving us some nuggets on how to build our capacity as leaders. Today, we're going to be speaking about what is trust and what does that look like within a business environment. What are some successful strategies we can incorporate into our own business environment as leaders? Why is it important? And lastly, what are some of the biggest challenges or the biggest mistakes that new leaders make, or even people who've been in leadership for a while, make in their effort to cultivate and establish, trusting relationships between themselves and your team? So, Stephane, thank you so much for being the very first guest on the Growth Leadership Cafe. I'm really excited about this conversation, and I just want to pick your brains on this. So who are you and what are you?
Okay. Thank you, Adesua. Like you said, my name is Stephane Bassomo, and I'm a business analyst, and I also in an insurance company in Winnipeg. And I also run a consulting business, where I part of my activities are project management or other type of contracts. So we have different lines of business in this company. The company's name is Noise, but the major one is the project management. So, and I've been working in different positions, from the lowest sales position, sales representative, to the management. So I've been a manager, I've been a strategy and analyst, and I've covered pretty much everything. So I dealt with people for this.
So you're very well suited to be having this conversation. So, thank you. I know that you're very well, versed and experienced person. So let's just dive right into it. My first question is, what is trust, and what does that look like? What does that mean to you within a business environment as a leader? What does that mean to you?
Well, as a leader, for me as a leader, the trust is the fact that it's relying on someone. You rely on someone from your team to do the right thing. So that means you don't need to watch over his shoulder to see what he's doing, to make sure he does it well. Of course, it takes a lot of trainings and a lot of experience, but it's still easy to gain trust when you. First of all, when you're working for someone, when you know what your job is, that's the first thing. You know what your job is, what your role is, then that's the first thing to do. Now, it's everyone's responsibility to fulfill the task they are assigned to, but it's also everyone's responsibility to take the initiative, right? Because you cannot only be a follower. Like you have a few standard tasks assigned to you, and if you come to work every day, you just complete your task, and that's it. You stay twisting your thumbs. That means there is a lack of trust, because we cannot trust you. But if the leader, for example, has to go to another meeting, or maybe he needs to be out of the town, of the country, so he needs to make sure that even when he's not there, someone is there to run the business. And if someone is running the business, properly, the way I need a leader, I want it to be run, right? So that's what trust is. If I can trust someone to do the same thing, that works on. And that's why I put it in few words, just relying on someone to do the right thing.
Okay. So when you say relying on someone, is it you as a leader relying on someone, or is it your team relying on you as the leader?
It's actually both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's both ways because I don't know if you're going to ask me that question moving forward, but there is a part of it where you say when you're the manager, sometimes the people will tell a leader, your work is as good as those who works for you. So they will be judging you by what's going on in your team. And it's not because you know exactly who messed up in the team. They will be looking at who's in charge here, right? You see what I mean? Something's
Yeah.
happening, they will come after the leader. So that's why I said it's actually me relying on my team and my team relying on me, on myself. But you asked me the question as a leader, so that's why I was showing it as me relying on the team. But it's actually both ways because you need to lead by the example. You need to show that what you mean by the trust. Because people working underneath you, people reporting under you, even if they don't say so, they're generally watching what you're doing and they're picking up from what you're doing. Yeah, and I can give a small example. For example, in the past, I was working as a strategy analyst. I was in Calgary. It was in an oil and gas company. There is something I've noticed with my boss by then. This guy, I had never been able to beat him being at work. I always thought this guy was sleeping in the office. I could come as early
He's in
as
love with his
possible.
job.
He was always in the office, no matter what time is. I was actually living like like uh, on the same street as the office. Like both buildings were nearby, so I just had like a 2 minutes walk, going from my building to the. But this guy, for I worked there for 5 years. This guy was always in the office. I was seeing him living at the end of the day, but I never made it before him at the office. And that's something we picked up because they won't tell you, you need to be late on time because, like I said, once again, it's your responsibility to do so. But just seeing this guy always on time, when he
Dedicated to his work, being punctual.
yeah,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
just automatically we were trying to be on time.
It's amazing. So, like, based on what you said, why do you think all of this is important? So, in terms of the team environment, why is that important for the leader to do certain things in order for the staff team to also pick up on that as well? But why is all of this important?
It,
Trust.
it, it is important because it provides a sense of safety, first of all, and then when your team members feel safe with each other, they feel comfortable to open up. That's the first thing. They'll
That's
feel
so true.
comfortable to open
Mhm.
up, and they will take appropriate risk and expose uh, vulnerabilities.
Okay. I think just to add to what you said, in terms for me, in my experience, in leadership as well, one of the reasons why I think trust is so important, like you made a point about, if you leave, for example, when the team knows they're not being watched or supervised, will they do the right thing? Can your business or your project, whatever it is that you're leading, would that thing survive if you're not there physically to monitor it? Right. So that's where trust comes in. Like
Yep,
in their capacity, you trust that even when in your absence, you know that the job is getting done.
yep,
Right. So it helps with team cohesiveness. When people, feel safe, like you said, safety is so important. When they feel safe enough in that work environment, they would like to come to work, because they like the people they work with, they like their leader, they see you are,
exactly.
they put in high regard, right? And so, they are going to want to be there. You're going to see less staff turnover, right? Because, for example, people sometimes will stay with you not because of how much you pay them, but because they feel like they can trust you and they really like working with you.
They feel in a family.
Yeah, the healthiness of your work environment is so important,
Yeah.
and trust is something that helps you keep people together, right? So, leading to my next question is, in your opinion, what are some successful strategies that you have used in helping you build healthy, trusting relationships between you and the people that on the teams that you've led? And where is the starting point? So for a new leader who's, setting out in this journey and unsure of how to really navigate this and start establishing that trust, what are some of the strategies that they can take on in their toolbox and implement?
Okay, so the first one is obviously what I said, like lead by the example. By example, that's the first thing. It comes naturally, and I already explained what I mean by leading by the example. The next one will be know each other personally, because
Yeah,
the more you know people, the more they will get to know you as well. And again, because
exactly.
all these steps are connected. So the more you know people and you already and they know you're showing the good example, they will be more comfortable talking to you and opening up to you, right? So that's the
And
first.
just to piggyback on that point, like relationship is very important, right? You
Yeah,
don't like people to, you're not like a wall that people are just coming to every now and then. They have feelings, emotions, and people connect with those things, right? So if they can't personally connect with you, they say sometimes, or there's a saying that people connect to the leader before they connect to the vision. So
yeah,
if that person who is very, disengaged or very removed from your team, they're just gonna have that almost lackadaisical attitude that, okay, I'm just gonna come here, do my quota, and go back home. Not because I really want to be here, but because it's my job, right?
yeah,
So one of the things I always recommend to people is, for example, lunch break. Don't sit in your office and say, oh, I'm the leader, so I don't engage with the team. Go
mm,
to the lunchroom, sit with people, have a conversation, get to know them, like be genuinely interested in them and in their life in and outside of work, because you might even start to identify skills that they have that maybe was not even on their resume, but is will be super beneficial to that your project or whatever business environment that you're in. Like small talk is not cheap, right? It
yeah,
really helps build, a healthy relationship, which also inwardly helps build trust. So like you said, get to know them, but let them get to know you as well.
yeah. And you can also socialize after work. But
Exactly.
that's also something that brings, that strengthens, it strengthens you know the
Mm-hmm.
the relationship. You make sure you encourage people to, to talk to each other. It can be through the meetings, or you can create building exercise. And that brings me to the next step. The next step will be to communicate openly. So that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time when you have your first meeting with the team, you actually need to create like to set a team chart, right? A team charter, sorry,
Yeah.
where you will explain them what's the purpose of the team, as well as you will be telling what's each other's role. You encourage people to ask questions, and when they're asking questions, even if they're asking question to you get people to answer. Like you say, okay, does anyone has an answer for George? So they will start answering, even if they're not looking at George, right? They will be talking to George. And now, if
Yeah.
George has an additional question, even if the question will be directed to me, he will ask the additional question or the clarification to the one who answered, right? So when you get them playing like that, so that's the first thing. Now there are other strategies coming in. Like I said, when you start not communicating openly. So after you've created the charter, so everyone knows who is who in the team, and what's the role, what's each other's role. Now you can get the team building exercises, right? You have the breaking ice. There's been a few, just simple games.
Icebreakers, play games, go out after work, just hang out together. It doesn't have to be always speaking about work. You guys talk about anything random, the
organizing
weather, what's
organizing a
fun to do in
few
the city,
few
you know.
activities, between people. So that's something they will like. This birthday thing, when people when there's it's someone's birthday, so it's part of the policy. To send a random a global email to which happy birthday to whoever's birthday is, and then you can organize. So everyone is free to organize something. It doesn't even have to be the boss or the leader. doing so.
Mm.
Someone can do that, and he'll be including the boss. He'll be including the leader because the leader already built the trust. So they won't be afraid to tell the boss, "Hey, sir, we're gathering a drink for George's birthday. So would you like joining in?" And then that's how it goes.
Something that
So
I do when I have, maybe I join a new team or I have a new staff on my team is, hey, I want to have a one-on-one conversation with you. And that the goal of that conversation is essentially to, get to know you, get to know your interests, but also get to know how you want to grow, within that business environment or within that program. And it's for me to also talk to you about me and where I started from and where I am now, some of the challenges I've had, and how I overcame them. But I also use that as an opportunity to let them know that, it's okay. Ask me questions. There's no stupid questions. I'd rather you ask me that than make an assumption and make a colossal mistake, right? So ask me as much times as you need. But also know that you can disagree with me. It's okay to say, you know what, Adesola, I hear you, but I disagree with you. You can still be politely, you
that's
know,
exactly what my boss used to say in Calgary. I hear you.
yeah, so like you can still disagree, and I don't want you to feel afraid to state your opinion,
Mhm.
right? I'm not always right as leaders. Leaders don't have all the answers, and for the most part, we actually look up to the team because for the most part, those people are working in frontline. You know where the shoe fits and where it hurts and some of the challenges on ground, so you can tell us what we need to do differently to make the experience much better for whether our clients or for staff, and everyone working in that capacity. So ask questions, but tell me when you're like, Adesua, oh, maybe we could have done this differently. To people really matters, right? You can be saying the right thing, but how you say it, your delivery, if it's wrong, then you're gonna lose people, right? Even if you have the best intentions and the way you treat people and the way you speak to people is condescending or demeaning, or you're undermining them in the presence of people, like, yeah, that's a huge blow to their ego, and they're not gonna respect you.
Mm.
They fear you or just do things just so they don't get into trouble, but it's not out of respect or trust in you, right? Yeah, any other tips or strategies you want to mention before we go to the last question?
Yeah, so those are those one the usual things. So discuss trust issues or don't place blame, like you said, like, especially for example when you're having a performance review with one of your team member. So
Mm-hmm.
like when you're reviewing, sometimes if you tell him you were wrong on this one, so that means like he feel he feel like an aggression, right? But that's
Mm-hmm.
why they use this word. They won't say, they will say good points, but they won't say bad points. They will say areas to develop, right? So you will tell them, okay, you did this, but this is how we could do this. So you give him the opportunities, the opportunity to, you know, to fix his issues by himself. There was another way I have discovered when I was working as a service desk analyst. They like when they notice a few, there's some lacks in the way you working with people, you're dealing with customers or callers, they actually give you, it's not a promotion, but they move you to the quality to do as they put you as a quality evaluator. So you'll be listening to calls and evaluating them. They will give you, some steps and a score a score sheet. That's where you will be scoring the call. But the first time they did it, they did it with me. I was still new in the team, but I was now listening to other people's call, including mine. But when you're listening calls and you feel like, okay, this guy, he did not do this right, because you have the scoring sheet with you, so you know what needs to be done. But the more you scoring the guy, you'll be like, oh, sometimes I also do this and this, and you correct yourself
Learn, yeah.
without them telling you that you're doing wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
after a month, my leader asked me, so how do you feel now after doing the quality? And I told him, I don't know why, but I feel like it helped me improving my own performance. And she was like, that's it. That was exactly the point. They did not tell you.
That
But
is an interesting approach. Personally, I'm a straight shooter. Like I'm direct. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or
the,
in
the,
here and there to tell you something. If I feel like there is an area that you need to improve, we're gonna have a conversation and talk about it. It's like, how are you? What's your experience with doing this so far? How are you finding that? And
depends.
see, you can gauge if they know or if they're even aware maybe they're doing something wrong. Or it's like having those difficult conversations to them, like, hey, I know that this is what you're trying to do. How about you do it this way instead? So how you say it, it matters. Like, yes, you're correcting a behavior, but you're not doing it in a way that is damaging and it's like, oh, you're so terrible at this, why can't you get it right? Like, no, like it's an opportunity to build their capacity, right? If you
Yeah.
see that area that they're lacking in, so and in that moment, if you have maybe a strategy or a system or a tool or resource they can use to build that capacity, like in your case, they asked you to do this. So by it's almost like a self-assessment without them telling you that this is what,
Yeah, it is
right?
actually self-assessment, and it also makes you think of the first step I told you about, lead by the example. Once again, don't get me wrong, all these techniques, it also depends on who you're dealing with.
Yeah, it depends on it's matching people's energy, like understanding them as an individual first and knowing what would be the best approach that is not going to have like a reverse damaging impact.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that brings me to the next, the other question you asked. You said, what would be the first thing when you start? And for me, amongst all these techniques, these strategies I've mentioned, like leading by example, communicate openly, know each other personally, don't place blame. The main one for me, what I will do, the first thing I will do the first day I get into a new job, if I'm starting leading a team, it's to get to know them. I will
Yeah.
I will have them, like, a 5 minute talk with everyone. It will be like you said, a random conversation. It's not an interview because they're already working for the company. But
It's interesting that you say that because at some point there is a team that was on and I had this new and usually, like I said, this is something that I do that I will call you in one on one, and it's just for us to chat. We talk in the group, but it's also to get to know the individual, and sometimes you can't really do it in a group setting, right? So, and this person felt attack threatened and thought maybe, oh, if they are honest with me, I'm going to get them in trouble. I was like, no, this is me getting to know you, so I know how we can mutually work together, for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all of the projects that we are going to be working on. And so when we understand each other, I know what your strengths are. I know how to, leverage your strengths. I know the areas that maybe, you might just need a little bit of help. And we all don't come knowing everything, right? And
oh, we
so
don't know. We're
what your
learning from
flaws
each
are
other.
too. Yeah. So I think for me, the starting point is getting to know them, let them get to know you as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the trust as well, is they're there for a reason to do a job, right? And so consult them. Don't be that leader who is going to just rain things down and say, we have this coming up. This is what we're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. Really
Don't,
asking
don't
them
be
their
don't be
input.
directive. That's because
Yeah, being very directive and not really consulting, like, hey guys, we have this thing, what are your thoughts? How are you guys, how do you think we can go about it? Like, actually ask them and ask them what their opinions are or their strategies on how to accomplish that. And if even if they don't agree with what they say, it's okay to say, that's one way to look at it, right?
yeah.
But actually consulting them, and that tells them that they feel valued. Everyone wants to feel valued, and knowing that their opinions matter and it's being considered, or it's even being sought after, that someone is even asking me, what are your thoughts? What do you think we should do? Right? People have degrees and they've spent time building themselves, and so they want to feel like they're contributing to whatever environment they're in. But if they don't feel that, they already automatically from the get-go feel they would disconnect, they would disengage from you, and it would just be you trying to pull teeth every time, because they're going to be like, oh well, she's going to tell us what to do again, so I don't really need to use my brain, let her just tell us what to do, I'll go do it, right? And you don't really give room for that intellectual capacity or intellectual dexterity to come out and really, flesh out within whatever project that you're working on.
Mm.
So say that is very important. Consult people, actually ask them what their thoughts are on things that
Yeah. And
you
that's why
value them.
I said you have to take like 5 or 10 minutes to discuss with someone. You introduce yourself, even if you've already introduced yourself to the entire team, but you get people to talk. That's how you find out, okay, what their personality has, what your personalities is, and then you will decide the way you will be talking, because you will
And
adapt,
you relate to that
right?
person.
And you
Yes.
will adapt your tongue accordingly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not a matter of preferential treatment, it's just matching people's energies. If you feel like someone is a bit, very soft spoken, a bit quiet, and they seem very introverted,
Yeah,
you maybe not be asking them to do certain things, because it's not like they're incapable of it, but you know what their strengths are, and you want to play to people's strengths,
yeah.
right? It really helps you know how to communicate with people when you know what their triggers are, you know how to respond, sometimes how they interpret information, so you know how you say things to them. Moving on to the last question is, um, what are the three biggest mistakes you think that people who are new in leadership or management positions make in their effort to build trust with their team?
Well, it is actually something you mentioned. It's being condescending. That's part of the thing. If you being condescending, like, with your team members, like, first of all, they won't be happy every time they will be seeing you, and they will always be trying to avoid you. And that means what I said about my boss. Like, this guy is going to react like that. So instead of getting people to come closer, you pushing them, you push them.
Hmm.
And then the other one will be, and they're all connected. The other mistake will be to be too directive. Like, when you come, you say, okay, I'm the boss and this is how we do. That's it. You need to give people the opportunity to be part of the decision you're making. To
Exactly. For me, I would say the first one I see a lot of new leaders make is, trying to be friends
Yeah.
with your team members to the point where you're crossing
Don't be too much friend, because
boundaries.
they will easily cross the
Yeah,
boundary.
it's very easy to cross those professional boundaries. Like, you can be friendly without being friends,
Mhm.
right? So where do you draw that boundary? So you get to a point where you want to be liked, and so you are agreeing with ideas or requests when even that idea would not produce a good outcome, but because you don't want to seem like you're shutting that person's idea down, you say, okay, yeah, let's do that, even though maybe from experience that approach wouldn't work, but because you want to be liked, you'd be like, oh yes, let's do that, right? Or you're maybe not acknowledging your errors. Like, you're
Yeah.
a leader, you make mistakes too, and there's just that
The best way.
vulnerability with acknowledging when you make a mistake and say, oh, you know what, guys, I apologize. I genuinely, sincerely apologize. That was my mistake. And just owning up for your mistakes. Like, even when people feel upset, that automatically just it brings down that wall of, it's like, okay, you know what, she made a mistake, but she actually owned up to it.
Even if, after work, maybe you get along very well with one of your team member, but you're not talking about work. And that's the reason why you mentioned in the beginning that sometimes, especially when you're socializing after work, there's no point to talk about work. When you get to talk about work, then you come back to the office. And even if one of the team member, because we know we were having a drink and he suggested me something, or I suggested something, then we get
Mhm.
make a decision on something, you tell him, okay, that's great, but let's talk about it at the next meeting at work, because we will be talking with everyone,
With
and
everybody.
no one will
Yeah.
be feel like, left apart. So that's how you conclude it. You don't make jealous people.
And I'd say the last point on that is, in that aspect of being liked as well, is not letting people's mistakes or errors slide because you don't want to seem like you're calling them out.
Yeah.
Like, you still correct people with love privately. It doesn't have to be public and just disrespectful. But when you get to that point of, oh, I want this person to like me, so let me not say anything about that mistake they made the other day, so they don't feel like, oh, she's mean, or like, no, you can be honest. And people, I actually find that giving ongoing consistent feedback is the most helpful, even compared to like a scheduled professional review or performance review, because that's maybe months or a year down the line where people have made series of mistakes. You didn't say anything and it's just exacerbated things and made things worse. And then at that point, you're like, oh, well, you've been doing this wrong for X amount of time. But when it happened, you can nip it in the bud as it's happening and call them out and say, hey, I know this has happened the other day, what do you think you can do differently? And if you're seeing that, this person's constantly doing it, you can tell that that's a pattern. Like, that's a habit that somebody has, waiting down the road to a time for a performance review for you to tell them all the things that they're not doing right. Right. So yeah. Any last thoughts, words, comments, questions for me before we wrap this up?
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. For me, everything is fine, and just like be a nice boss. That's the lesson.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, speaking with me today. I really appreciate it. And I did learn,
Likewise. Yeah.
from you. And my final comments would be the strategies we talked about today are things that have worked for us, or we've seen, from our own managerial journey. And what worked for me might not necessarily work for you. It can be very unique to who you're working with, your team environment. And so really taking the time to understand your team members would be super beneficial for you and would save you a ton of heartache and just unnecessary stress down the line, because you start knowing the level you need to operate at. So thank you so much, for watching today.
You're
If you
welcome.
this video, I would say give it a like, comment down below, let us know what are your current managerial challenges. Is building trust something that you are currently struggling with? What have you tried? What worked? What isn't working? Let us know in the comment down below. And most importantly, if you really like the content here, I would say click on that subscribe button down there, and so you get a ding every time I post a video, which is essentially every Tuesday. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next episode.